Well, as you know, when you begin to plan for travel and you begin to pack, and the first thing you think is, how simple can I do this? We're getting ready to head to Guatemala in a week with a team of our people, and I've already got my bag laid out, and I'm thinking, okay, I'll take one pair of pants, I'll take one shirt, I'll take one of this and my hammer, and we'll be good, you know what I mean? We'll be good. Because the hardest thing is trying to get through the airport with all of my stuff and all of my bags, and it's so heavy by the time you get it all strapped on, and then you have to check that one big bag and all of those things. And you know, if you're a parent, how hard it is to try to pack that car and get every little thing you need for your kids in order to be able to spend your time away. The hardest part, wouldn't it be something if we could cruise through the airport with no bags, if we could just get in the car and ride to the beach with our family without that thing on the top, or without pulling something from behind, we could just be free from the heavy things that slow us down. That would be a beautiful thing. Today we kick off a series called Summer Baggage, because the truth is, we all have some heavy things that we continue to drag along behind us. And what we're reminding you of each week when we come together is that the way of Jesus is not just a way of thinking, it's a way of living. And Jesus has offered us a way to live that is easy, and his burden is light. And so my prayer and our elders' prayer for you over the next few weeks is that God might allow you to lose some of the heavy baggage and to find good rest in him. Does that sound like a good plan? Great. I want you to welcome one of our elders, Paul Glenn. Would you give him a big welcome? Paul Glenn. And he's going to be leading us through this first session on baggage. Paul, thank you so much for what you do here, for your friendship with me, and we're looking forward to hearing what God's given you for us today. Thank you.
Thanks, Dean. Good morning. Wow, you guys are awake today. Nice. We're really glad you're here today. As Dean mentioned, we are starting the summer series on baggage, summer baggage, and I want to talk to you something about that's really important. This morning we're going to talk about friendships, and that's not because friendships are baggage. It's because oftentimes we carry baggage that impacts negatively our ability to be a friend and therefore have friends. Today, we're going to talk about that. There's a survey in 2021, so it's a recent survey. It's not a long survey ago. It was entitled The State of American Friendships. And it said that friendship is now a declining feature. Think about that. It's now called a feature. Friendship is a declining feature in American culture. In 1990, it said that 73% of Americans had 4 or more friends. Today, less than half have 3. Currently in our culture, the primary source of friendships is no longer the church, it's the workplace. And that's even more complicated because now we're working remotely from home. Think about all the friends you spend time with there. But it makes sense that the workplace would be that. I mean, literally think about it. If we all came back here Monday through Friday from 8 to 5, we'd be closer friends as well, right? It's proximity, it's space, it's time. But there's more that the survey addressed. It also addressed this concept of friendship satisfaction. We always have to rate things, don't we? Only 54% of women are satisfied with their friendships. And it's worse compared to only 48% of men. So what does that mean? That means basically half of us are not satisfied with the friendships that we have. Don't look around, please. Sadly, 15% of you, on average, have ended a friendship over politics. Only 50% of you have what you would describe as a best friend, according to the survey, and that's down from 75% in 1990. There's another recent survey that asked respondents, in the last 6 months, with how many people outside of your family have you deeply discussed an important personal matter? Only half could come up with a single person. Again, this seems significantly worse for men because we stop having friends after we get married. That's not funny, people. That's not intended to be funny. It's a sad thing. Think about it this way. Just think about this. How many of you can name your dad's close friends? I'm not talking about his work colleagues or his neighbors. I'm talking about his friends. How many of you know your dad's friends? It's rare, right? It's a bit of a riddle for most of us. And the challenge is that the older we get as men, we typically have fewer and fewer relationships. And I am in that category too. This is not I've got all the friends and you don't. This is reality for us, right? The survey's legit. And when men are connected, unfortunately, we're connected on superficial things like work and sports and poker and hunting. And I know some of you guys are saying, that is not superficial. That is my life, buddy. But the reality is that it's not the substance of life. Only 1 in 10 men in this survey had someone outside of family with whom he discusses deeper issues related to money or marriage or life. That's not good. So here's why this message is important. We already know from one of the last sermon series we talked about, Boomtown, there's 100,000 more people coming to Randolph County, right, who need friends. And we at Northridge, we want to be the type of church where people can find the right kinds of friends, not the kind of friends who can beat you at beer pong and pat you on the back for working your way into a married person's bedroom. That is not friendship. We want to be the kinds of friends who point people towards Jesus. That we help people walk in his ways and we hold them accountable towards being more Christ-like. I know this, in some ways, it's kind of humorous, but at the same side, it's really, really serious. And if this wasn't difficult enough, it's more difficult in a church like ours, in a community like ours, where we have our friend groups, and we've had them since high school, and it's very difficult to see new people. It's very difficult to know what to do with new people. You know, Dean shared a few weeks ago that Northridge in its life cycle over the last many years has gone up to 500 people and back down to 350, and back up to 500 people and back down to 350. And that's because the last in are the first out. There's an accounting term called last in, first out. It's LIFO is what they acronym. And it basically means that the last ones that are coming in, they don't stick around. And there was a church study back in the 1980s. And I knew of this study back then. And it basically said that people don't feel like they belong to a community unless they know at least 7 people in that community by name. Basically, if you don't know 7 people in 12 months, you won't stick around. So let's just try something here for a second. How many of you have been here? Let's expand it. How many of you have been here for less than 2 years? Okay, keep your hand up. Look around. Keep your hand up if you know 7 people or more by name. Good. That's awesome. Some hands went down, but some stayed up. That's good. I just want to say officially, we're glad you're here. I've not been here much longer than that. We're really glad that you're here. So with all of that in mind, that is the context. That's not the intro. We haven't even got to the intro, people. Let's look at 1 Samuel chapter 18. This is one of the greatest friendships of all time. And it shows us not only why friendships are important, but how to develop them. And it also gives us an insight into the baggage that we're working against. So 1 Samuel chapter 18, we'll start with verse 1. This is just after Goliath has been killed by David. He's gone to have a kind of a powwow with Saul, and the meeting's breaking up, and it says this: after David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan, that's the king's oldest son, became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. From that day, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return home to his family. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. Jonathan took off the robe he was wearing, and he gave it to David, along with his tunic, and even his sword, his bow, and his belt. And what's crazy about this is, in any sense of leadership transition, who's going to be the next king? Jonathan, right? And yet here's Jonathan divesting himself of all of his princely type stuff. Everything that would, like, say he's the next one, he's given it all to David, and this is long before any of that was to come. But here's the crazy thing: there's not the slightest hint of any comparison, any envy, any jealousy, none of that in Jonathan. He just simply gives it away. Look at verse 5. So whatever mission Saul sent him on, David was so successful that Saul gave him a high rank in the army. This pleased all the troops and Saul's officers as well. Now they're going to go back to the story of them coming home from Goliath. So when the men were returning home from after David had killed the Philistine, the women came out from all the towns of Israel to meet King Saul with singing and dancing and with joyful songs and with timbrels and lyres. And as they danced, they sang, Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s. Now this song is not intended to make David greater than Saul. There's a common thing in Hebrew poetry that basically they'll repeat the same type of phrase again, and the next one is to reiterate it, but it also like ups the ante. It intensifies the concept, right? Basically, what's this song saying? It's saying our king and his men are kicking butt and taking names is what the song is saying. But who listening to this song, right, would feel as if it's about somebody else? Saul, right? So the women aren't trying to say that David's better than Saul, but Saul interprets it that way. So verse 8 looks at that. Saul was very angry. This refrain displeased him greatly. They've credited David with tens of thousands, he thought, but me with only thousands? What more can he get but the kingdom? And from that time on, Saul kept a close eye on David. So let's skip ahead. We're going to skip ahead to chapter 19. What we're going to skip is kingdom life, David going and doing things for Saul, David winning his wife. We're going to skip over all of that kind of stuff. We're going to get to chapter 19, the very next chapter, moving into verse 8. Once more, war broke out, and David went out and fought the Philistines. He struck them with such force that they fled before him. But an evil spirit from the Lord came on Saul as he was sitting in his house with his spear in his hand. And while David was playing the lyre, Saul tried to pin him to the wall with his spear. But David eluded him as Saul drove the spear into the wall. That night, David made good his escape. This is actually the second spear attempt by Saul on David's life. We skipped one of those in chapter 18. And this begins the long season of Saul trying to kill David. There are 4 more attempts after this. And while all this while, Jonathan is pleading. He's like, Dad, what did David ever do to you? Dad, David's like, there's no better friend you have in the kingdom than David. So the challenge is now they got to figure out what's going on. Is Saul just in a mood again, or is he really out to kill David from here on out? And so David and Jonathan come up with this test to figure out what are Saul's real intentions, right? And so the idea is that David's going to skip the monthly barbecue with all the generals. And Jonathan's going to say he has a family commitment. And when he did that, Saul got ticked off, really ticked off. In fact, it says that he chunked a spear at Jonathan, his own son, in that moment. So now they know, right? Saul's out to kill David. And so Jonathan goes out to David. They had this prearranged meeting, right? This secret signal, like Barney Fife. Hooty hoo, hooty hoo. No, it was more like some privative CIA kind of stuff. Like, you come out, you shoot some arrows, and then if it's safe, you say this one thing. If it's not, you'll say, the arrows are beyond you, to his servant boy. And when he did that, David knew that was the phrase. He was in danger. Saul was going to kill him. So verse 41, we pick up there. It says, after the boy, the servant boy, had gone, David got up from the south side of the stone and bowed down before Jonathan 3 times with his face to the ground. And then they platonically, I know how you guys go, platonically kissed, right, each other. And they wept together, but David wept the most. Jonathan said, go in peace, for we have sworn friendship with each other in the name of the Lord, saying, the Lord is witness between you and me, and between your descendants and my descendants forever. Then David left, and Jonathan went back to the town. Now I'm going to tell you, there's a lot about friendship that we're going to unpack here, but first, I want us to look at the baggage, right? The baggage portion. This is our summer baggage tour. The reality is that Saul had baggage and Jonathan didn't. And it's so clear and evident between the two of them. Saul's baggage was comparison, envy, and jealousy. And then the comparison part's really easy to see. David's getting credit for 10,000. I'm only getting credit for 1,000. Right? But the reality is that you and I do this too. It doesn't matter whether we're plumbers or IT professionals, teachers, executives, or pastors. It doesn't matter. We all have this sense of, we see what goes on. We compare ourselves. We look at our neighbors, our coworkers, our colleagues, and even our friend groups. And we kind of rate ourselves. It's human nature. It's a tendency. The problem is that comparison leads to envy. And envy is defined as painful or resentful awareness of an advantage enjoyed by another, joined with a desire to outdo or undo the rival's advantages. In American culture, we soothe this, right, by accumulating more material goods, more stuff. We go into debt, acquiring more things so that we can raise our own status, right? We can raise our own importance, our own value, somehow to prove our worth. So comparison leads to envy, but here's the problem. Envy, prolonged envy, leads to jealousy. And jealousy is a hostile attitude toward a rival or one who enjoys an advantage. Americans, we soothe our jealousy by outdoing a longtime rival, by putting them in their place, telling them off, by besting them or witnessing their defeat or demise. How natural, how easy it would have been for Jonathan to become jealous of David and align with his father Saul. But what about us? It's about to get real in here, people, just telling you. How do you feel when a friend gets better grades? When a friend catches the bigger fish? We're starting easy. When they get the promotion, the one promotion. Only one could get the promotion. How do you feel when your friends have more expensive cars and they keep them so stinking clean? How do you feel when your friends who are younger than you seem to have more money? Ladies, ooh. Men pray. How do you feel about your girlfriend who, as she continues to age, she just looks fabulous? Or what about your friends, kids, who got into the colleges you'd hoped your kids would get into? And even worse, got scholarships, or maybe even a full ride. Do we ever just look up to heaven and say, why not me, Lord? Or do we have the ability to just celebrate with our friends? See, true friendship rejoices when your friends receive favor and blessings, even when you'd like it yourself. This morning, I want to talk to you about three things: the character of friendship, the importance of friendship, and the power of friendship. First one, the character of friendship is selflessness. The Bible teaches us that Jonathan loved David as much as his own soul. Not only is there selflessness in Jonathan's part, there's intentionality. I don't know if you caught this in the discussion, but they didn't just happen to become friends. Jonathan made a covenant with David. He decided to be his friend. And he decided that there was nothing that would ever come between them. You and I, to overcome our petty comparisons, our petty envy, and our petty jealousy, and yes, they're always petty. We have to decide to be selfless. We have to decide intentionally to be a friend. Second thing, the importance of friendship. There are several things that we see in David's friendship with Jonathan that really are available to us with true friendship. The first is this: friends provide the truth. We see that Jonathan told David the hard truth. He didn't just tell him the things that he wanted to hear, he told him the things that he needed to hear. Jonathan wasn't ready to just make David feel good. He's like, no, dude, it's serious. My wife told me this morning that I couldn't talk about us. My wife and I have a long-standing commitment that we will not let the other one leave the house looking poorly. Now, I'm just going to tell you, I have to pull that card on her about once every 3 or 4 years. But she loves me as much, and she pulls that card on me about once every 3 or 4 days. A true friend will tell you the truth even when it hurts. Proverbs 27:6 says, wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. What does that mean? When a friend says to you, does this outfit make me look fat? And it does. A fake friend says, no, you look great in everything you wear. A true friend says, you know, you should put on that blue blouse. It looks so much nicer. I love it when you wear that. Right? We don't just tell them what they want to hear. We tell them what they need to hear. And that's the second importance of a friendship, and that is friends will protect you. Jonathan was willing to tell David he was in danger, and I know that for Jonathan and for David, that did not feel good. That was not a happy conversation. It says they wept. But a true friend thinks more about your safety than your comfort. The crazy thing is that it was Jonathan's words to David that sent David on the run. And get this, his best friend. They never saw each other again. Never. Again, safety, truth over comfort. A true friend who really knows us also sees things that others don't. They even see things that you don't. Friends will identify our blind spots. Without them, Proverbs 18:1 says, "An isolated man seeks his own desire and rages against all sound judgment." Listen, you and I both need friends who will shoot straight with us. And we need to be that kind of friend to other people. David's friendship with Jonathan protected him in many ways. But that wouldn't have been possible if Jonathan were dealing with the baggage that his father was dealing with. If Jonathan was mired in comparison and envy and jealousy, none of that would have been possible. The third thing this morning is the power of friendship. Jonathan's friendship also strengthened and shaped David. Now, I'm going to tell you a few things you've heard before, but it's a good time to just put them into context. We know that Canadian geese, right, fly 71% farther in one flight when they're flying in a V with others than they do when they're a goose alone. Scientifically. We also know that the strongest breed of horse in the world can pull 5,000 pounds by itself. 2.5 tons it can pull by itself. You put two of those same horses together and they can pull 14,000 pounds. Now, I know some of you aren't good at math, but that isn't just addition, that's multiplication. It doesn't just double, it multiplies their strength. And for us, healthy friendships will multiply your strength, not deplete your energy. I am going to say that again because some of you need to hear that again. Healthy friendships will multiply your strength, not deplete your energy. Think about the people you call friends. Are they multiplying your strength? Are they sapping your energy? Jonathan's friendship strengthened David. It also shaped David. And that's the other thing. Healthy friendships will shape you into a better version of you. Proverbs 13:20 says, "Walk with the wise and you'll become wise, but the companion of fools suffers harm." There's other famous sayings. The one that says, "Show me your friends and I'll show you your future." There's the one that says, "You become the average of your 5 closest companions." Think about your 5 closest companions. Who do you spend the most time with? Do you want to become the average of that? Better yet, ask your spouse, do they have any concerns about the average of that? So a couple of years ago, our son got married. And they wanted a really quiet, intimate family wedding, immediate family only. It was a very small wedding. But that eliminated extended family and some people that were really close to us, that had walked through life with us. And so a couple of weeks later, we brought together still a small group, but 40 to 50 people of our closest friends, and they had walked with us through all the stages of our kids' lives. These weren't just friends of ours, work colleagues or things like that. These were people who walked with us and with our kids. We brought them together, and they were there in a reception for our son and our daughter-in-law. We had family members in the room also, and I said to not only our son and daughter-in-law, but our daughter and son-in-law, and then we had nieces and nephews in the room, and I told them, I said, here's the deal. These people that have walked with us through lives, they walked with us through the seasons of our kids' lives. And in fact, these are the people in the room who shaped us. They shaped us into better spouses. Their friendships shaped us into better parents. Their friendships shaped us into better people. The people in that room, their friendships shaped us into better disciples. And I told our nieces and nephews and our kids, I said, it's never too late to meet people like this. In fact, The reality is that of all of those people in the room, Susan and I didn't meet any of them until after we were 30. But they shaped our kids' lives by shaping our lives. And I want to tell you, you might be just one friend away that you haven't met yet from being a better spouse, a better parent, a better person, a better disciple. And the great thing for us is there is a massive tidal wave of people coming in a people pool of 100,000 more potential people coming into this county who they don't live here. And they need friends as much as we do. They're looking for that too. The question is, what are we going to do with that? So I'm going to take just a minute for us to get really serious with each other. And I'm going to ask you to do something. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. And you're like, are we praying yet? No, we're not praying. I really just want to ask you to close your eyes because we're going to look into our luggage today. And I don't want you to be distracted by anybody else. I want you to contemplate these questions. Do you have 4 or more friends like Jonathan? Are you attempting to be a friend? And if no is the response to either of those, then here's a question. What's keeping you from more relationships, more friendships? Are you focused on yourself? Therefore, you just have problems seeing other people? Or do you struggle seeing yourself as someone that others would really want as a friend? Have you ever talked yourself out of a friendship because either they don't measure up or in your eyes you don't measure up? Is there someone you know that you've thought they just seem to live a charmed life a little too much? Have you ever wished you were them or that you had what they have? Is there anyone who makes your blood boil at their privilege and their arrogance? Have you ever wished that someone like that might get taken down a peg, or it would be okay if they got what they deserve? Have you ever thought of anyone like that? You know, if they got hit by a car, it wouldn't necessarily be the worst day on earth. Would you open your eyes and look at me? Those questions are intended to identify comparison, envy, and jealousy in our own lives. I'm here with you. Preparing for this sermon, I had to ask myself those same questions. And I see it on your face the way that I felt, and that was I didn't like all my answers. But here's the beautiful thing. Is if you don't like the answers to some of those questions as it relates to your own luggage today, there's a simple solution, and it's way more simple than you would have thought. It's as simple as this. Spend time with Jesus. We got to get really serious about our friendship with Jesus. We got to get really serious about our friendships with others. I will tell you this, if we will spend time with Jesus, if we will set aside some genuine time to pray, not over meals, not at the end of the day, not the obligatory thing at the beginning or end of a meeting or something like that. I'm talking if we really seriously spend a little time with Jesus, spend some time in his word, allow us to think and through that. if we will get serious about that, he will begin to shape us. I'm telling you, we might even need to begin to pray for others. Like there might be some people who came to your mind that best thing might be if you just prayed for them. There might be some of you in here that you might have thought to yourself, I'd like to be one friend away from being a better person. Begin to pray for that person. I can tell you this, that if we'll spend time with Jesus doing these things, we'll begin to become like him. And when we become like him, then we can begin to do things like he did. And we can be the kind of friends that he was and is to us. Would you pray with me this time? Let's pray. Jesus, we thank you. We thank you for your love to us. We thank you for your friendship to us. We thank you for your word that allows us to see what a true friend looks like, but also illuminates what the baggage that we wrestle against looks like. Lord, I pray that as our community continues to grow, as our church continues to grow, as we want to be the kind of church that points people to you. Lord, I just pray that you'd help us to draw close to you, that we be shaped to be friends. Lord, I pray that you'd open our eyes to see the friendships and the possible friendships around us. Lord, I pray that you would take and allow the baggage and the ugliness at times that we carry, the heaviness that we carry. Lord, I pray that you would help us to set that aside, that we choose today to set comparison and envy and jealousy aside, that we might look and act more like you. Lord, I pray this over your people today. In Christ's name, amen.